We're really seeing within CBRE a need to try and bring a lot of service lines together. So whether that's supporting insight selection or into build programs, a large focus on the built environment and the operational delivery of that, where people, talent, safety, and uptime and technical prowess really become a key requirement and differentiator for us.
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? Particularly like you being quite global. Just the breadth and spread of what clients are looking for insight and help with gives us great opportunity, but from a talent perspective, some really interesting challenges.
Keeping that culture of process balanced with innovation, and challenging the norm to not only to develop new ideas and new ways of doing things, but having that ability to check and challenge in order to say no or to say stop when you need to, from a safety or from an operational perspective.
Yeah, and you're right. Actually, it took me back actually to part of the sort of strategic requirement for us in really thinking carefully about culture, and going from a way of operating as an organisation that could be described as more analogue than digital, but with a need to become much more of a digital business, and therefore that requirement of, well, what is the culture that you need that takes you from an environment where, yes, it is still expert-led, still has a heavy process aspect, but it also has a disruptive element, but disruptive within a narrow framework that doesn't bridge across into safety critical areas. And that's quite an interesting and dynamic challenge to think about from a culture perspective, because as your strategy grows, you're constantly looking at your culture to say, well, is it going to get us to where we need to get to? And if not, what levers do we have to start doing? And how does that link through to the discipline in process? At what point is discipline in process restrictive on innovation as opposed to enabling on innovation? And that's a challenge for us.
Do you find they diverge? So one of the biggest challenges and continual challenges we have is we've got operational delivery and sites and clients at the heart of what we do. And at the same time, we have global teams and so on, or regional teams that are challenged and focused on the innovation. And those can diverge pretty quickly from each other. And so how do you bring them, from a BSI perspective, how do you bring them back together or keep them a common culture rather than running two parallel cultures?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and I think it's an area that I wouldn't want to say we've absolutely cracked. I think we started with a question that was, do we have a common culture or do we have common pain points? And then we have tried to look for those aspects that are mutually supportive in light of our strategy. And so some of the aspects has been around having that curiosity.
It's fascinating. There's so many parallels. So I find that we have teams that are absolutely fantastic in terms of their innovation and their challenges. And we've got services in 46 countries, and we find that we have the same problems pop up in lots of different places. And so we have this innovative spirit of fixing these problems. And the challenge with that is you end up with 6 or 7 different variations of a fix to the same sort of client challenge, which is great because it's client-centric and it's the right innovation and the right culture, and you never want to diminish that, but you've got that balance of how do you still deliver the global consistency. Make it scalable, right? That a workaround at a site is done with all the right intentions, and I still 100% want it to happen in order to deliver that client experience or that safety first, or to motivate or to attract best talent into it or retain best talent in our business. But as similar to BSI, as you operate globally, if you that culture of keeping and celebrating the successes, but also understanding that you have to move in a single unit in a single direction. We try and almost sort of downstream and empower our business. So I mentioned earlier that we are geo or regionally focused, or country focused, for all of those local benefits and so on. But also that each of our leaders is responsible for safety. They're responsible for finding talent and working with the market. They're responsible for developing their people. They're responsible for retaining them. Responsible for growth. Responsible for other financial metrics and supplier relationships. And then we support them with subject matter experts, probably at a regional level, sometimes at a country level, in technical and QHSE and procurement, to try and drive that ownership and push that decision making to the site, and to drive that mini MD or mini CEO mindset within our business. Is it the same in BSI's line of work with the disparate services and service lines, or?
Yeah, so we have global lines of business and global functions in the way that we are set up to operate. But the nature, in the same way as you, the nature of the client experience and how we deliver work means that it is a very locally applied business. And so that shadow of leadership, as we describe it, it's how you're showing up every day. It's what you are accepting and promoting, as well as what you're ignoring, and both are equally important. And trying to get that consistency around the client experience, doing business in a responsible way. It goes back to the purpose. If we want a fair society in a sustainable world, then our behaviour and how we operate is the start of that, because we are a mirror of society and whether or not we get a sustainable world. And so we start with that, and we operate very much in both a global and a regional basis, but we have a strong country presence in the countries in which we operate. And so there is that partnership arrangement around the types of roles that are hired directly within the business, the types of roles that are hired through the global function from a capability perspective. But even where they're hired by a global function, the service is to the business. And so we are here to ensure that BSI as a whole operates in the right way and can deliver the right type of service. And so that's where our culture really comes to play, because we're trying to move the organisation from quite a hierarchical model to much more of that global matrix where you are relying upon key expertise on a number of subject matter expert areas, where it may be a business decision that happens at the end of the day, but it is a decision with benefit of specialist input and advice and counsel. And that's a journey.
And it goes, fascinating you said that, and it draws into the matrix organisations that we touched on earlier. But that idea of maybe to summarise some of it is that we all have to lead the way, whether it's sustainability or standards or a fairer society, or from our case maybe operational excellence or safety or uptime. And that ability for our individuals to be empowered, to have the right people, the right support around them from a specialist perspective, from a career development perspective, from a well-being we've touched on, I think, from that space as well. And even though the organisations are very different, we're both very much people-led organisations, and that the commonalities there, hopefully that we've drawn out in the discussions today, really do resonate, and they're albeit different challenges at different stages from it. But what's really struck me there is the authenticity of leadership that is needed throughout that. the value of purpose, and how we all find our own purpose as organisations.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a fascinating conversation and really enlightening and heartening, actually, because some of the challenges that often we think are just ours alone, just in this very short period of time, we've established or actually shared challenges and opportunities. So thank you so much for taking the time.